Hello and welcome back to the Washington College Sports Spotlight Series. A little bit of a different guest this time. We're digging into the alumni pool for this week's guest, and that is Wes Robertson. Wes, how you doing?
I'm doing well. It's good to be here. Thank you guys for having me.
So you have had quite the journey in terms of your sports and baseball career. For those who may not know, uh, Wes Robertson, a standout Shorman for the Washington College baseball team, went on to have to start your professional career in Major League Baseball. If you could just tell me a little bit about what that's been for you so far, sort of where your Major League career has taken you.
Yeah, pretty weird events that kind of led up to it. I was a catcher in college. I was a pretty pedestrian Division III player. I was like a maybe slightly above average hitter, but nothing really jumped off the page. Got hurt halfway through my junior year. Always had a strong arm. Ran into some good luck and culmination of kind of hard work and opportunity. Joining forces, and I turned into a pitcher. Threw 3 2/3 innings in college. Turned out I threw really hard, and went to summer ball. Yeah, right. I always get a smirk out of it. It's like, yeah, it wasn't that easy. It's like, yeah. Went to summer ball, played in a league called the Futures League, which is mostly comprised of like lower level Division I guys, Division II guys. Got really fortunate there. The owner of that team, Dave Hoyt, was a scout for the Cardinals and had some professional experience as a player. Kind of took me under his wing and got my name out there, which is pretty hard to do for a D3 guy. I think, after I threw one outing and he's like, hey, I think that you kind of belong in professional baseball. The next time I threw, there was like, a handful of teams there, and threw about 10 pitches that day and started fielding calls from some teams. The draft has already been over, but I was a junior, so I was eligible to be a free agent sign. And started talking to the Yankees and the Rangers and ended up signing with the Rangers. Spent, I guess, 3.5 years with them, 3.5 years, 4 seasons with them, one of them being the COVID year. And I had Tommy John during that time, so I was kind of on the shelf. So 3 full playing years, made it to high A with them. Really great experience. Love the Texas Rangers organization. Some of the best friends I've ever had are there. And then from there, I went to the Cincinnati Reds in what is called the Rule 5 minor league phase of the draft. So essentially, I was not protected by the Rangers on their AAA or Major League roster. After my 4th year, and as a college guy, I became eligible to be essentially it's like a cash trade that the other team can't say no to because they've already deemed you not a big enough asset to put on your Major League roster. So essentially, the Reds took me in the draft, had to pay the Rangers. Went over to the Reds, had a pretty tough year last year. Type of stuff happens. Became a free agent after that season, and then signed with the Baltimore Orioles a few months after becoming a free agent, and that's where I'm here. I'm here now in beautiful Sarasota, Florida, at spring training with the Orioles. That's the 2-minute version.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about what that's been like. Obviously, being a Washington College alum, you're staying relatively, well, not staying local, but coming back local, I guess, with a
Yeah.
local organization, but then you join a local organization and then they tell you to, hop on and take the trip to Sarasota. What's the experience for you in spring training been like being there with those guys in Florida?
It's been great. The Orioles are they're a really good organization. They're very youthful. Very efficient, I think, with the way that they're doing things. It's no secret that they're kind of in a Goliath of a division with the Yankees and the Red Sox, some teams with some pretty big pockets. And so I think that the Orioles and the Rays are in a situation where they're trying to outsmart teams. And I think that they're really getting to that point. I think that the Orioles have a lot to look forward to, and I feel really fortunate to be a part of it. I'm around a lot of bright people who've done the best to get the best out of me. And I'm excited for whenever it is that we break camp. I think it should be in the next few days if I'm fortunate enough to find myself in Aberdeen, Bowie, Norfolk, wherever it may be. I'm excited to head back towards Maryland. I haven't, all my friends really kind of stayed there after college or were originally from there anyway. So I haven't really been able to get to see them, always being on the West Coast for spring training and then kind of just scattered throughout the South in my playing days so far. So it'll be a bit of a homecoming wherever I am, 5 hours from mom and dad and my brother, which would be nice because that's been a while since they've gotten to kind of just see me play with any relative ease. So I'm really looking forward to it and, turning the page.
So this is just me being curious, and there might
Sure.
not be a relative answer to this,
Sure.
but everybody who follows baseball at all knows that the last few months have been interesting.
Yeah.
Did the lockout phase of Major League Baseball affect your time at all, or did you kind of dodge that when you hopped on with the Orioles?
So because I'm in the minor leagues, if anything, I think, I try to look at the positives of things. I think it was almost advantageous for me. I think teams were in a situation where they were aware that with the lockout looming, there's a lot of guys that weren't going to be showing up. Every organization now has roster limitations. And as a guy that is older, I pitched at some of the higher levels, last year without success. But there's a lot of things that go on beyond what shows up on the back of your baseball card, as in spring training and training camps, where I feel like I've done enough to prove that I can be a double A type pitcher. They were looking for those types of guys because every team has a 40-man roster, and 12 of those guys are not actually going to be in the major leagues. Actually, 14 of them are not actually going to be in the major leagues. They'll be in AAA or AA, but because they're on an active major league roster, they can't participate in minor league camps. And if the season were to have started in the minor leagues and the major leagues were still in a lockout, that's 14 bodies that they're short on. And so teams were in a phase of looking for guys. Obviously, they get to a point in spring training where, teams trim down that number. But I tried to not really get bothered by it. I had some friends. I have quite a few friends that are in the major leagues that they were probably a little bit more interested in what was going on than I was from a financial standpoint, wondering if they were going to, not that they would go pick up a side hustle, but what was going to be coming in this year versus what they expected. I'm really glad that for my boys that they're in a pretty good spot, and I'm happy for fans too. I think that everybody just kind of wants kumbaya between the owners and the players, so hopefully we're getting there.
So we kind of, as you said, we kind of hit the 2-minute version of your Shorman story, if you will, at the
Yeah.
beginning. But let's turn the clock back a little bit and talk
Yeah.
about your time with Washington.
Mhm.
Obviously, like you said, pretty successful catcher, pretty successful with the bat, and then you had the injury. Just tell me a little
Mhm.
bit about, if you could, overall your time with Washington College, and I guess if you could tell me a little bit about what that transition was like, where you found out, hey, we're going to give this pitching thing a try, and how that all
Yeah.
worked out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I was fortunate enough. I was recruited pretty serendipitously. The 3 coaches ago now, Travis Turgeon was there when I was being recruited. He's a Connecticut guy. His father's a Connecticut guy. I'm a Connecticut guy. I didn't have a place to play. I had no offers, and I did good enough at a tryout camp for Washington that they kind of gave me, like, hey, I mean, in Division III they don't give out guarantees, so essentially like a preferred walk-on spot where I knew I would be on the team for my freshman year. And by the time I got there, Coach Reynolds had taken over. Coach Reynolds and I still have a really good relationship. He's a really bright guy. He's heading up over at UMass Amherst now. And yeah, I came in and won the starting job as a freshman. Had a pretty underwhelming, year, but had a really good time. Like with the team. Those guys are my brothers over there. Like no matter where I go in professional baseball, like those guys will always be family. And I think I'd be doing a disservice to Washington College if I didn't mention kind of really how much the strength staff meant to me when I was there, and the trainers, kind of people that are behind the scenes and might not show up in the box score when you look at how the baseball program is doing. But when I was there, I was fortunate to work with Johnny Jenkins and Ty Cottrell in the strength staff. And I think for me, that was the biggest piece. I was very physically behind in high school. When most guys are getting recruited, they've gone through that maturation process, right? And I knew I was skilled, but I weighed like 155 pounds, and I just wasn't, like, for lack of a better term, I wasn't like a man yet. You know what I mean? I kind of went through what most guys go through at 15, 16 in terms of that maturation at like 19 and 20, but because of the foundation that was able to be built through the coaching staff there and through the strength staff there and the medical staff there, I think that when like my body had caught up to what I had been doing, I was really fortunate. And so I'm really glad that I was kind of behind in that sense. Started to see some turnaround on the field as a hitter too. I say that I was underwhelming as a hitter. I wasn't terrible. I wasn't good though. But like by my junior year, I just started to have some pop that I never had. Like ball started going over the fence a little bit. I had always had a strong arm though, even when I was undersized. And then so when I started to catch up to guys and showed up at college at what 5'10", like a buck 50. By the time I left my junior year, I was 6'2", 195, and by the time my body had caught up to that, my arm really kind of took it to the next level. And so the discovery of me throwing hard was some of the guys were doing what's called run and guns in the gym. They were doing the weighted ball program. This is when Driveline was starting to become popular. And I was like, I just want to see how hard I throw. I've been on a radar gun and, God knows how long. And I was warming up that day. And, so you do a crow hop. You're going to throw harder than you would on the mound. But yeah, I threw about 3 or 4, and the guys were kind of just laughing, like, "No, the gun's broken. Like, that number's not correct." And then by like the 5th time of doing it, I was like, "Yo," they wouldn't tell me how hard I was done. They just flipped the gun around and it's at 101 miles an hour. And I was like, "Okay, I think I need to explore this a little bit." I'm an idiot. Probably cost myself a couple $100,000 by not pitching sooner in the draft. But I got hurt. That I feel like God kind of intervened a little bit, and I got hurt halfway through my junior year in a weird way that I couldn't squat anymore to catch, but I could still push off of it laterally to pitch. And got on a mound and was kind of registered in the low to mid 90s at any given time. And now that's more common practice, but in 2017 that was still a pretty outlier number to be able to get up to 5, 6, 7. And so I think the fortunate thing for me as a pitcher is that, it's really hard to get drafted out of Division III, but a radar gun doesn't lie. A radar gun is a universal language. If you throw, if you hit 500 in Division III, that's really not going to help because they're just going to say, well, yeah, you weren't facing good pitching. But if you're throwing 95, like 95 is still 95, no matter who you're facing, and that'll play. And so that's the 3-minute version of how I got the opportunity, I guess.
So looking at some of your other aspects of, I guess, your time at Washington, tell me a little bit about, I guess, your major and some of your studies, and then obviously we know what you're doing now, but hypothetically,
Sure.
any alternate plans or any use for your studies that you had at Washington before you left?
Yeah, I really enjoyed my time at Washington College in the classroom. Like I try not to be like some, like a blockhead. And I studied business and economics there. My father's a businessman, and I kind of knew what I wanted to do when I went in there. The small class sizes were really good for me. And even the fact that it was a liberal arts school, I'll tell a quick story later, but yeah, it's classes like Spanish, which ended up being very useful in a profession where 50% of my teammates are not from here. And so now I'm fluent in Spanish, which is, I mostly learned here, but that at Washington College kind of set the foundation. So it was a really good experience there. After college, after I dropped out after my junior year, I have not gone back to get my degree yet. That is something I plan to do. I've been working with Suzanne Vowels on trying to find a way to do that. It's not that easy, but maybe now that I'm closer to home, it'll be a little bit easier. But yeah, I continued my studies pretty. I'm a pretty voracious reader of economic based books. Whatever it may be. Maybe not exactly the stuff that I was being taught in school. Keynesian type economics. I studied more Austrian economics when I got out of college, like freelance. I don't know really what I'll do after baseball. I know there's going to be opportunity for me to stay in the game. I'm very data centric and biomechanical centric in terms of what I like to study within baseball. I think being bilingual will help me whenever my time comes to maybe move to the other side of the line. I could see myself saying not really, I don't really want to be a coach, necessarily like in uniform and constantly on the field and, chit chatting with guys, but in some, shape or form in player development. I think that could be something that I see myself doing whenever it is that, God tells me it's time.
So just another random question to throw at you.
You're good. Yeah.
I'm just curious. I know you obviously have a lot going on, but do you ever take time to go online and check out how your old squad's doing? The old Shorman.
Constantly. I'm always keeping up with them. I've actually gotten close with a lot of the younger guys. Coach Beddick afforded me the opportunity to come through this year in December and actually work with their pitching staff. And through there, I connected with a lot of the younger guys that they have, a lot of the freshmen, obviously with their grace, and said, hey, I can be a resource for you guys. And so I actually did a lot of off-season programming for some of those guys, Joe Morrissey, Alex Martin, Corbin, Mosteler, who's a close friend of mine. He's also from Chester, Connecticut. So I've known Ryan since he was a kid, although he still is a kid. But, so I've known these guys for a while. And, after each of their outings, I try to shoot them a text and just see how they're doing. And, I could say that the program is in really good hands. Like, I feel like for the first time in a long time, they're heading in a direction of kind of becoming something pretty serious, which is pretty awesome. I feel like my biggest regret in college still is having not made it to the Centennial playoffs. And it's a tough conference. The formatting is very forgiving. You get 4 out of 10 teams to get in, and Johns Hopkins is pretty much going to get in every time. So it's basically 3. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what they can do this year, and I'm always rooting for those guys, including Coach Bedick. That's my guy, even though I never played for him.
Looking forward now, obviously you've dipped your toes here in professional baseball. You've landed with the Orioles here for spring training. I guess as spring training comes to a close here, you move towards the start of the season. What are some of your goals that you have moving into, I guess, the more regular season side of minor league baseball?
Yeah, I want to pitch a full season that, I don't want to say I want it to be uninteresting. I want it to be an interesting season, and that I want to do well. I want to get promoted. I want to ultimately reach the major leagues. But I want it to be an uninteresting season, and that, I don't find myself on the DL at all. I don't find myself, kind of just like meandering throughout the system like I did last year when I was struggling. Normal might be good this year. I would I would like a more relaxed year. But no, I just want to go out there and really just kind of execute the things that I now know that I do very well, and put myself in a position to give myself an honest answer and an honest assessment about myself as a player. I tell people, I think there's 2 reasons to play minor league baseball, because it's not super glamorous if you haven't heard. But you either love baseball just more than anything in the world, or you really think you could be a big leaguer. And I think you got to be able to answer one of those questions with the affirmative. And I love baseball. I don't think I love it more than anything, but I really think I can be a big leaguer. I know that I have big league stuff. It's just a matter of consistently executing it. And so I want to see myself put myself in the best position to do that. And the cards will fall where they may. But I want to just have an honest answer. You know what I mean?
Baltimore Orioles pitcher and former Shorman Wes Robertson, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks, Nick. I really appreciate it, man.